All right, perfect. So thank you for joining today's session. My name is Adrian Garcia. We have also on this webinar Joe McCarthy and Joe Hudak with us. We appreciate everybody for joining and taking the time to listen to this webinar. I'm sorry if you did have a couple of issues to log into the webinar. So we're just gonna start a little bit later than expected, but I'm hoping that everyone will find this webinar useful. Today's topics, it's gonna be surrounding the NVR3 and some of the new features that have been released in the last few versions. If you do have questions, we do have a Q&A section, so go ahead and post your questions there and we'll try to address those towards the end of the presentation. So as we get this started, let me go ahead and kick off with our agenda for today. So we'll go ahead and cover a little bit of what ACTi Unified Solution looks like and who we are. We'll talk a little bit about our licensing, and then we'll jump straight ahead into our NVR demo and cover some of the features that have been recently introduced into our NVR platform. And finally, we'll go ahead and just address some of our web utilities and go into a Q&A session. So again, appreciate everyone for joining us. And later today, we'll have another session in which we will cover a brief introduction of our NVR3. So this is going to be a little bit more advanced. If you do want to cover some of the more basic stuff on the NVR3, feel free to join our noon session. All right, so let's get this started. Let me allow Joe McCarthy and Joe Hudak to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about our company.
Joe, I'll let you go ahead first.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. For those of you who joined us based on the emails that I've been sending out, number one, thank you for attending. But number two, just take note that I actually reversed the actual topics today. So the morning session is going to be regarding our new features and some things that we've recently released, and the NVR3 overview will be later on today at noon. So just know that if you're joining us this morning for the NVR overview, that'll actually be at noon today. ACTi has been in business for the past 17 years, doing nothing but IP video. We've since then have actually expanded our offerings to include things like analytics, digital signage, system health management. So we are able to offer you a complete end-to-end unified system. That being said, we also play very well with third-party VMS and third-party cameras. So if there is a current system in place and you're looking to add to it, we also can fit in there very well. From here, I'll let, since we are running late, I'll let Joe Hudak join in and then get Adrian started.
Great, thanks, Joe. My name's Joe Hudak. I'm the Director of Sales for the East Coast. We appreciate everybody's participation today. Joe did a great job explaining who ACTi is if you haven't worked with us before. One of the things that I'll say is if after this call you have any projects that you need assistance with, Adrian, Joe, and myself will be there available for you. And I also just want to remind everybody, if you do have a project, we do offer project registration to help you with your projects and your budget. So feel free to reach out to us. As Joe had mentioned on the last slide, our headquarters is actually in Taiwan, Taipei, Taiwan, which for those of you that have heard about the NDAA, this means for you that if you're buying our products, we are NDAA compliant. The NDAA HR 5515 basically started August 2019 and stated that for selling to government-funded projects, the products had to come from an origin other than China. So we are actually compliant with this. On our website, if you want to learn more about this, we have a link in a banner, or if you do have questions, you can always call Joe, Adrian, and myself, and we're happy to help you out. But the nice thing about this is with ACTi, we don't have to worry about any of the current tariffs coming on China in regards to increasing your cost. And in regards to selling to government facilities, we have products that are available for you to actually be able to go into those agencies and sell. So with that said, I will turn this over to Adrian, and he'll get us kicked off on the new features of the NVR3.
All right, awesome, guys. So before we jump into the demo, just a brief recap. This is a diagram that shows our unified solution architecture. So just to give you an idea of all the different components that can take into play when using our system, you can scale up from hundreds of channels all the way to thousands by using our central management system, and you can take advantage of our mobile client apps for iOS, Android, and also the different workstation clients that we do have. We also have the public view monitor and TV wall, redundancy server failovers. So during the next couple of weeks, we will be covering some of these products as well on other sessions. So just stay on trying to keep up with some of our new webinars. So in today's webinar, we will just focus on the NVR3 and the new features. So let's, before jumping into the demo itself, just have a brief overview of what the licensing looks like. Joe,
Adrian, would you like me to take this slide? Sure.
Yep.
Sure, I'll take this slide for you. So the great thing about ACTi with our licenses, and a couple things to note other than what's printed on this this slide is that first and foremost, there's no reoccurring fees with ACTi. Once you buy our software, our turnkey solution, we provide certain licenses with it. You're never going to see a SA on it, which means for your customers, this is more friendly to their budget, because when year 1, year 2, year 3 comes along, they will get their technical support, they will get their patches and upgrades at no additional cost, which means for them that they're able to actually use their budget to grow their system where it needs to be grown. The other thing that's fantastic about the ACTi licenses is for those of you that are installing to use our licenses, very simple. You go ahead and just simply add a camera. If at a later date you decide that you need to swap out a camera, unlike a lot of the manufacturers, we don't tie our licenses for the cameras to actual MAC addresses or IP addresses. All you simply do is go ahead and remove the camera that you're no longer going to use. Your license becomes available to you again, and you go ahead and add your new camera, and it'll apply the license for you right away. Which means for your technicians, it saves them time in regards to calling into tech support. For your customers, it makes it easy so that their downtime with the system is only a couple seconds, if that, on that camera. So the key with ACTi and our licenses are no upgrade fees, no annual reoccurring fees, and obviously the easy replacement with the licenses. And of course, any questions that come up on that, we're available to help you on that as well.
All right.
Next slide, Adrian.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So just for everyone's reference, we do have a public access demo site on our website. So this is the site we will be using for today's session. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into the NVR3 demo. Again, because this is an advanced session, we will be covering some of the new features and some of the advanced features that have been added in previous versions. If you do want to see a little bit more of the basic features and basic operation of the NVR3, please join our noon session today. So let's get this started. Let me begin by introducing one of the new features of security, in which in the latest version, if you actually go to our website in the download center, you will see that the latest version is version 3.0.15.49. So that is the newest release, and one of the main things that comes into this is that now the very first time you log in, you actually have to set a non-default password. So what that means is that the previous credentials that were used in our system, admin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are no longer in place. Now you have to set your password the very first time you log in. That's due to a bill that was introduced by the state of California in January of this year. So all of our products no matter if it's cameras, NVRs, software, now do not have a default password. So that's just something to take into consideration as well. As you install your projects, you will have to set this up. So again, you'll find this on the NVR3 administrator tool, and then you will go into account, and this is the place where you will be able to set up your account username and password. All right, so moving forward, again, we will be just jumping between different features that have been added in newer releases. So just try to keep up with me, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to share those into the Q&A section. Now, let's jump a little bit into some of the video analytics that have been recently integrated. So the first one I want to show, it's one of our newest cameras, the A44. It's a 12 megapixel zoom bullet. We do have a dumb version for this. It's the A84, and this camera has analytics that support people detection, vehicle detection, and face detection. So the idea is that directly from the NVR3, you'll be able to configure this. In this case, we have the face detection configured. You'll be able to set just like what you set for motion detection, but in this case, it's actually going to classify objects based on whether they're faces, persons, or vehicles themselves. I do have a short video clip here just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So let me pull this into the screen just to kind of like get you a better overview of how this works. So this video is actually available on our website. So let me just jump straight into the portion where it's actually detecting a vehicle. So this is a good example. When a vehicle is detected, you can program the NVR to give you car detection pop-up notification, or you can get a search event as well. So there's a couple of different ways where you can get these events added into your system. And again, we have this for both car detection and people detection on this newer version of the NVR3. So this is another example where it's actually detecting people. And in this case, I believe it's going to be right on the left side, the people detection area. So it's trying to avoid people going out for smoke in the middle of the night. So in this case, it's going to have that pop-up notification. So it's just to show a couple of examples on how it works. In this case, we're going to do a simple event search. We can either go directly through the event instant playback, or we could go through the playback window and do a search from there as well. So in this case, we're showing how to do an event search for people detection. You might notice as well, we have the car detection as well in there, and we do have the face detection, just like we have other analytics. So again, this is a camera-based analytic, so that means everything is actually being processed on the camera itself. On this camera, it's actually using machine learning analytics, so that means analytics get better over time. So it's a really good way to get your system working and adding intelligence to it. All right, so the setup process, like I mentioned, is pretty simple and straightforward. There's not a lot of vehicles actually right now in the parking lot in our urban office, California. So, but we did see those videos, and let me show you right here a couple of examples in which, for example, we could go ahead and filter those events. So if we were trying to find in here an event, we could just go ahead and try to filter all of the events for this camera, including car detection. I could go ahead and hit search, and it's going to find all of the different events, including motion detection in this case, and all of the others that we mentioned as well. All right, so the other type of analytic I want to mention, it's going to be something that hasn't been previously integrated, but a lot of our users don't know. It's actually a capability within the system. So this is for cameras that do have embedded analytics, such as line crossing, enter area, loitering. So all of this analytics actually, again, can be configured and programmed directly from the NVR3. So if you're not sure if your camera has analytics or not, I'm going to show towards the end of the presentation on our product selector how you can find this information. So the main idea is that all of the video analytics can be found within this tab. So if you go into the setup page, devices, select your camera, and then click on the video tab, you'll be able to find this video analytics area, and then you'll be able to configure all of your analytics from here as well. So besides the other analytics I showed before, you'll have, for example, on some cameras, analytics such as line crossing for viewing area, phase detection, unattended object. So again, all of these are camera-based analytics. When it comes to ACTi, we don't charge extra for you to be able to use analytics that are in the camera itself. So that means that by owning the camera license, you already have access to this analytics that are embedded within your camera. We do have other type of analytics that are server-based. So, for example, license plate recognition and also facial recognition are a couple of other analytics that have been recently integrated into the NVR. So if you were to look for a license plate tag or number, you could go ahead and input this information as well onto the NVR3. And now, because of the integration we've done with our analytics server, then this is actually, you can actually get results and video associated to that as well, directly into the NVR3. So we won't really cover much on the license plate search recognition or facial recognition on this session, but those are features that have been recently added and integrated as well. Within other integrations, we've also done an integration with a gunshot detection system that is going to be released later this year. So again, we probably will cover this in other sections, but those are new features you'll find on the NVR3 corporate. So if you were to upgrade your system to the latest version right now, you'll see all of those integrations in your search panel. Moving forward, one of the key features that was added into the .15 release, it's going to be the capability of doing GPU decoding. GPU decoding, sometimes also known as hardware acceleration or hardware performance, it's actually a feature that allows you to use your graphic card into the server or workstation to actually decode video in a better way. So this is particularly useful since now a lot of the cameras support H.265. A lot of users expect to actually get higher resolution and higher performance of their systems. So using GPU takes advantage of the graphic card that you have on your system to be able to decode video more efficient, in a more efficient way. So if before you were able to decode maybe 16 cameras at 720p or 1080p, now you might be able to expand that further to 25 cameras, for example. That all depends on your hardware capabilities, including your CPU, your RAM, operating system, network capabilities, and the camera configurations itself. So it's really hard to put a number on how much improvement you'll get depending on the graphic cards you're using, but definitely you'll see a boost on performance if you are using a graphic cards and you decide to upgrade the system to the latest NVR3. You have the capabilities of disabling this hardware acceleration as well if for some reason you don't want to use it. So you'll find this on the workstation tab itself from the setup page. On the latest version, we've also done a pretty big architecture change, moving from 32 bits to 64 bits, which is why we've recently increased the maximum number of channels on the NVR3 software edition from 100 to 200 because of the services capabilities expansion itself. So that means if you had a system previously up to 100 licenses, now you'll be able to expand that up to 200. Note that you will have to take your hardware into consideration as well when you're doing that expansion. And that's the reason why some of our new standalone servers that are using newer motherboards, newer CPU, expanded memory RAM as well, now have the capabilities of going up to 256 channels. So we've continuously improved the NVR by adding those major features going into 64 bits and also adding that GPU decoding capabilities for improved performance. So the next feature that we want to talk about today is going to be some of the new enhancements that have been added into the player export format. If you are familiar already with the export process, you'll know that you do have the option of exporting video as a player. So what that means is that you actually can export up to 4 channels in a synchronized executable file. So I already have one here on my desktop. Let me go ahead and show some of those new features I was mentioning. In this case, I have this file right here. Let me go ahead and show one of the new features is that you can actually now use digital zoom within the player. So that means you can go ahead and use, just like you do it on the NVR3, the digital zoom capabilities. So if you're trying to find, for example, a license plate tag on this video export, you'll be actually able to do it a lot easier. Now, let's say that you actually want to export this image. Now you can right-click and take a snapshot as well. So if you notice, the player is looking more and more like the NVR3 itself. So you can take advantage of all of these features again by just making sure you update your NVR3 to the latest version of NVR3 corporate.15. Now, the player has also added the capabilities of doing fisheye dewarping. So if you do have a lot of fisheye cameras, for example, in your system, now you actually have the capabilities of doing dewarping directly on the player itself. So you can continue to export the regular way you were doing with player, and now you'll be able to select all of the different dewarping views, such as the panorama, quad view, or the expanded dewarping as well. All right, the next feature we want to cover today is going to be the some of the system settings that have been added. So let's go ahead and show here what we have in regards of exporting snapshots. Now we have added the capability of asking if you want to save as into a specific path as snapshot. So you can go ahead and select this option. And now if you go into live view or playback, you'll see if you right click that you have the option to take a snapshot and save it as, and you can decide where you want to save this, and you'll be able to add a specific text overlay as well. So no matter if you want to add free text or customize the style, you can go ahead and select these options as well here. You'll be able to also crop the image. So if you want to find a specific section of the video footage that you want to take a snapshot from, you can also go ahead and do that. Okay. Speaking about text overlay settings, we've had a couple of different options as well that have been added as well for customization. So now we can also go ahead and customize the text overlay. So no matter if it's font, size, color, those are all things you can now customize as well directly from the UI display settings. And you'll be able to also customize a little bit the configurations from your Google Maps overlay, and also the way you configure the analytics overlays. So with analytics overlay, that's going to be the region detections. So as you're probably familiarized with the NVR3, you have the motion detection areas popping up with red color. You can now customize that as well. And you'll be able to customize the visual tracking settings too. So I'll show you in just a little bit more about visual tracking, which is actually something that has been added for a couple of versions now into the NVR3. But again, it's an advanced feature that is pretty popular, and I want to make sure that we do cover it on this session. All right. I hope I'm not going too fast, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to post those on the Q&A section, and I'll do my best to address those towards the end of the session. All right, moving forward, let's go ahead and jump into a couple of the features that were added on the playback section as well. So one of the key things that was added on the playback section is the capability of switching between different time zones when you're doing playback. So if you're dealing in a situation where you have your server and your client within different time zones, now you'll be able to select in which one you actually want to display your time bar. So before you were always stuck with the client side time zone, now you can actually select the time bar to be on a different time zone based on the needs that you have. You'll also be able to search on the calendar search by the second. Before you were limited to only search by hour, minute, and now you can actually go ahead and filter to a specific second, so you can narrow down your incident or event to a very specific timeline. And finally, when it comes to integrations as well on the access control side, now we do have the capability of searching events for the access control server that ACTi has recently introduced. So we will probably have another section for access control later in the next few weeks, but just to let you know that we do have this capability now on the NVR3. And the final thing I want to mention about new features is that now the NVR3 for third-party cameras also supports H.265, and it also supports analytics events for some of the cameras. So if you do have third-party cameras that have, again, either H.265 or some analytic events such as line crossing or tampering, those are actually now supported features within the NVR3, so you'll be able to take advantage of those as well. So that covers pretty much some of the new features that have been added into the latest release. Now, let me go ahead and just do a brief recap of some of the other features that have been added on recent versions that I think are pretty popular, but some of them somehow unknown for some of our users, and I think they're pretty useful. So let me go ahead and show some of this. So the first one I want to show is going to be visual tracking. Visual tracking, it's a feature that allows you to set an overlay and link cameras to those overlays so you can make navigation easier and for you to be able to track individuals as they walk into your facility. So the idea is that, for example, let's start in our parking lot. Let's say that we have someone coming into the entrance. Now we can go ahead and easily just click on the next camera, and then we can jump between cameras by just clicking on the different sections, and we can always try to follow that individual through the doors from the front door all the way to the back door by just clicking through cameras. So this is a very different style of navigating. If you remember, we have the eMaps, we have Google Maps, as we've covered in other sessions of the NVR3. But using visual tracking, it's a little bit more intuitive in the sense that you basically just need to click through an overlay to be able to navigate into your system. So you don't really need to learn where cameras are located. You don't really have to think through on where cameras are at a specific layout. You'll be able to use the visual tracking feature both on live view and playback. So it's a pretty useful feature that has been added now for a couple of versions. And the way you'll configure this is by going into setup, and you'll find into devices that we have now a visual tracking tab. So if you were to select under basic, you'll find that we have this visual tracking tab, and this is the place where you'll find how to link cameras and how to create these overlays. So it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is enable it and then start adding regions. And for each region you add, you'll be able to select the camera to link to. All right. The next feature I want to talk about, it's going to be thumbnail search. Thumbnail search is a great feature to find a particular incident in a very long period of time. So in this case, let me jump ahead into playback, select one of our parking lot cameras, and let's try to find the time that a vehicle came in. So let's go ahead and choose this one as an example. So if we went ahead and right-click, hit thumbnail search, we'll be able to create different thumbnails based on a different interval. We'll go ahead and select an hour interval. And what we're going to do next is we're going to start clicking through and using our mouse wheel to zoom in as we try to narrow down the interval from an hour all the way to 10 seconds by just keep clicking on the first thumbnail that has the vehicle on the scene. So we've narrowed it all the way to 1 minute now, and we will continue to do so all the way to 10 seconds so we can see that particular time where the car came into the parking lot. So we're almost there, and now we should have all the way narrowed to 10 seconds. So we're just going to choose the first thumbnail before the car actually parked, and we're going to start playing through. So within a couple of seconds, we were able to actually skip through reviewing hours of footage by just using the thumbnail search. So this is a very useful feature, especially for this type of scenes, parking lots, warehouses, where objects might have been moved and you might not have a good idea on when that happened. So thumbnail search could be a very useful way of finding those particular events. All right. The next feature I want to talk about is going to be the web controller. Web controller, again, it's a feature that has been added for a few versions now, but I think it's pretty useful, especially within the current situation that the country and the whole world is facing, where you might want to have your security staff in full alert and have them with additional information, no matter if it's a case management system, if it's information about regulations or safety measures that your state or city has to follow through. You will be able to create a view and put a website next to it. So in this case, all you got to do is create a new view. I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to select a different layout here, edit it, and we're going to choose a website. So all we got to do is go ahead and add a hyperlink. So in this case, we can add, for example, no matter if it's ACTi's website, or we can actually just use something like google.com as an example, and it's going to include that right here. So in this case, it looks like it doesn't like google.com, but let's try our website. I think that's going to work better. All right, and you should now start seeing content populated on this layout here. You can customize the layouts as you're probably already familiarized with the 64-channel layout. You'll be able to do a lot of customization because you'll be able to go ahead and change the grid to your particular needs. So this brings customization to a whole different level by being able to add cameras with any kind of shape within the 64-channel grid. In this case, I'll just customize it to something a little bit nicer, just to keep the example going. Okay, so let's do something like this. And right next to this, we're going to go ahead and also add an EMAP. So the idea is that you can customize all of the different configurations between web controller, maps, cameras, and you can do different kind of layout just by doing this. All right. So another popular feature that has been added in recent versions is the capability of interacting more with the mobile client. So if you're familiar with our mobile client app, besides just being able to do live view playback directly from your smartphone, we do support iOS and Android apps. We do have the capabilities now of also sending push notifications from your smartphone, from the NVR to your smartphone, and also receiving messages from the app into the NVR through the notification server. So that's actually something that has been introduced for a couple of versions now. Up until now, the service has had a licensing system that it's on a monthly or annual basis, but it's actually a service that in the coming months we will be actually introducing for free. So you'll be able to add that by configuring the notification service settings right here on the setup page. And then you'll be able to do interaction with your smartphone by doing configurations in which, for example, if you have some of the analytics that we discussed before, in which, let's say, for example, the A44, you have your car detection configuration right here. You will be able to set, for example, that you send a notification to a specific user, and that's going to show on their smartphone, just like a text message notification or a Facebook alert. So anything that you want to actually configure within the event handler, you'll have that capability of sending notifications to your smartphone. From your smartphone as well, you'll be able to add push video. So if you go into the add section, you'll be able to add mobile devices. So we'll probably cover how to do this on a different section, but just for your reference, the mobile client app does have the capabilities of pushing video directly into your NVR3.
Adrian, can you define that? Can you define that a little bit better for us in regards to what do you mean I can push video from my phone? Give me an example.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the idea with push video is that for your security staff that has access to the NVR3 with their smartphone, they'll be able to use your phone's camera to actually start streaming video from your camera phone directly into the NVR as if it was another camera channel that you've installed. So the concept is that for areas where you might have dead coverage or no coverage at all, you'll be able to actually start pushing video to cover an investigation directly from your smartphone. So that does require a license. That means that you'll have to add your smartphone as if it was another camera. So it's going to take one of your ACTi licenses. But you'll be able to basically have a camera on the go all of the time by just taking your smartphone out and using the mobile client app.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. So the final feature I kind of want to mention today is going to be the Bezel Zoom feature. That's a PTC feature that is available on some of our cameras, some of our speed dumps. The idea is that just like we use digital zoom, where we can just draw a box and and focus on a particular section, we can actually do that now as well with PTC cameras. So in this case, I can go ahead and draw an area, and a PTC camera is actually going to start physically moving towards that section. So I can continue to try to zoom into a specific section, and this is actually optical zoom. So the camera is physically panning, tilting, and zooming into this section by just drawing into a particular area. So this is the camera that we have on our headquarters in Taiwan. So this is the Taipei 101 building. So as a lot of us cannot go out of our homes in the current situation that we're living, at least now we'll be able to go ahead and take a look at the city of Taipei from our homes. If you go to our demo site, you'll be able to see some of these cameras. Again, towards the end of the presentation, I'll go into more details on how you can log in. So this is the Bezel Zoom feature. The configuration is pretty straightforward. If you want to find this, you'll just go into the setup page and find the camera that you actually have this feature with. Go to PTC, and you'll find that now we do have this option in which you can go ahead and select absolute PTC. This is also known internally as the Bezel Zoom feature. All right, so those are the features that I wanted to cover that are currently already available on your NVR3. I want to do a brief mention as well on some of the upcoming features on the .16 release to be available later this year. Some of them is going to be the capability of using HTTPS. So if you want a more secure connection, you'll have that option as well on the upcoming version of the NVR3. So in this case, I have a beta version actually running on this server. So you'll find that as an HTTPS configuration here on the NVR3 administrator. We will also have the capability of using multiple browsers. So if you were expecting to use other browsers such as Safari, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, you'll actually be able to use live view and playback functionalities within those browsers as well. We'll also add the capability of adding camera groups, so you'll be able to customize your cameras into different groups and just make navigation a little bit easier. That's going to be also pretty useful if you do have a central management system. And then we will also introduce the 64-channel export capability. It's going to be something similar to the player, and everything is going to be embedded into a single folder, and you'll be able to play through 64 channels synchronized in a single executable file. So that's going to be also a pretty nice feature to be added on the .16 that is going to be released later this year. So that puts an end to the demo I have for today. Again, if you do have any questions or any features that you would like to learn more about, please feel free to add your comments on the Q&A section or questions, and we'll try to address those in the next couple of minutes. The one thing I do want to mention before we go into a brief recap of our website tools is that this demo site that I showed before is actually available for you to use. So we'll be sending out information about how you can connect to this demo site. So you can do that through your browser, or you'll be able to use also your mobile client app to connect into the system. So we do have a lot of cameras and a bunch of the options that if you want to display some of the analytics as well to your customers or to other people that you work with, then that could be a great way to showcasing the system. All right, so just to finish our presentation, I want to just do a brief recap of some of our website tools. We do have a project planner. We'll be having a couple of different tools that have been added in the last few months, such as the standalone NVR throughput validator, and we do have also a few analytics selectors. So if you're trying to find, for example, specific cameras for analytics, we do have a couple of tools for that. But the one I really want to focus on right now, it's going to be on a product selector. We've recently, or we've actually had it for a while now, the capability of filtering out cameras based on analytics. So if you're looking for cameras that have any type of analytics, you'll be able to find those directly on our product selector. So in case, for example, you're looking for something that can do a facial or face detection, you can use this filter and it will give you all of the different options, including the new camera I mentioned that's using machine learning analytics, the A44. So if you click into some of the specifications on this, there's a specific section for analytics in which you'll find all of the analytics that are included. In that, it's people detection, car detection, face detection, and there might be other analytics coming up in the future as well, as it's remarked with asterisk here. So that's kind of like what we have for today. If you do have any questions regarding configurations, you're always able to also reach out to our technical support team. We are open 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday to Friday. And also, you can also reach out to Joe Hudak, Joe McCarthy, or myself as well, if you do have any questions or if you want to talk about a specific project. So that brings to an end our presentation. So Joe, do you want to add some comments while I take a look at some of the Q&A section notes?
Sure, I can do that for you. So a couple things that I just wanted to point out. The feature sets that you saw today were added based on customer feedback. So if you see something in the NVR or something that you need to include in the NVR, remember to contact us, let us know so that we can get it in future revisions of the software as well. In addition to that, we've had feedback that a lot of our customers would like to demo the software themselves, which Adrian provided a website, and we'll send the information out for credentials. But you can also go to our website and download the NVR3 software. The enterprise version comes with 16 free licenses for demos. So you can actually put that on your own laptop, add your own cameras, and do your own demos. And then last but not least, if you do have projects that you're working on, remember Joe McCarthy and myself are available to help you work on those projects and also do project registration for additional discounts on your projects. Joe, I'll turn it over to you for your last feedback.
Yeah, the only thing I want to touch on, for those of you who joined us late, I see a few of you here that probably are joining us based on either my LinkedIn update or the emails I was sending out. I did have today's schedule reversed. So the 9 a.m. session we had this morning was on our new features, and the noon session later on today will be the basic VMS overview. So I recommend you join us again in a couple hours at noon, where you'll learn, more about the VMS as far as setting it up and the basic functions and features and things like that. Other than that, Adrian, we have a couple of questions you may want to address.
Yes, thank you, Joe. So the couple of questions that we have are, number one, is the gunshot detection, if that's a camera side or a server side feature. So gunshot detection, it's actually something that will require specific sensors. So you will actually have to get a separate device, and those devices will be integrated with the NVR3. So it's not a camera-based feature. You will actually have dedicated acoustic sensors that they will have to be installed, and they do have a separate server themselves as well, and then all ties up with the NVR3. So we'll probably have more information for the gunshot detection system in upcoming sessions. So make sure to stay on top of our upcoming webinars, and you feel free to join to one of those. The next question is going to be, can I install BreathCam on the NVR3? BreathCam, it's a very popular analytics software. We are in discussion of having that integrated within our NVR3, but it's not at the moment, and we don't have a schedule on that just yet, but it is something that it's been currently discussed. So we'll keep you informed with that. And I believe those are the main questions that we had. If you do have other questions, you can always join our session later today. It's going to be at noon Eastern time. So feel free to register if you haven't just yet, and we'll be happy to address any other questions then. So I think that puts an end to our presentation. Thank you for joining us, and we hope we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Hope to see you later on today.